Welcome back. All right, so in my continuing look at teams and what they've been able to do in the offseason, keeping in mind it's only a couple weeks till I'm going to be doing season previews, I did want to touch on the Penguins today. And I wanted to touch on the Penguins because they're in an interesting position, right? They missed the playoffs in back-to-back years, but they've been close. And that could be the most dangerous thing to be because general manager can say, you know what, we're not that far off. And that seemed to be Dubas's opinion after the season was done. He defended some players who didn't have great seasons, which is, again, what a general manager would do. But it does leave us wondering, so what is the plan going to be? He did say that there was no plan to have a full teardown rebuild. He didn't see the point, and that some sort of retool where you're adding young players to the lineup might work out. So I don't know if the moves that have been made since he said that, and that was back in April after the season was done, I don't know if those moves would indicate any kind of a retool. I don't. The reason being that while they're not trading away a bunch of draft picks now, they seem to have stopped that, and rightfully so. This team's just right around the middle. Maybe they make a run for a playoff spot, but we'll see. So Drew O'Connor, who I know is popular amongst Penguins fans, I did the video on players that could break through. I didn't include O'Connor because I feel like at age 26, he is what he is. 79 games, 16 goals, 17 assists, 33 points. Could he hit 20 goals? Maybe. Sure. Yep. But ideally, I think if the Penguins were looking to get into a contending position, they'd be looking to at least add a left winger or at least a top six winger and then figure things out. Crosby, who's 36 years of age, 82 games, 42 goals, 52 assists, 94 points. To this stage, Crosby has not shown his age at all. There's been no breakdown in his play offensively or defensively, but eventually that's going to happen. It could happen this season. We saw with Ovechkin how quickly that storyline can change. Brian Rust, 62 games, 28 goals, 28 assists, 56 points. He's 32 years of age. So one thing that's working against the Penguins is the age of their players. For instance, not on the board is Lars Eller. He's 35. Bunting, of course, after coming over from Carolina and the Jake Gensel deal, Bunting fit in pretty well. 21 games in Pittsburgh, 6 goals, 13 assists, 19 points. So much better, I thought, in Pittsburgh than what we saw from him in Carolina. It does make it a little bit easier to handle losing Jake Gensel. However, is Bunting going to outscore Gensel this year? Probably not. So while Bunting could get into that 20-goal range, maybe 25, maybe 30 playing on a wing with Crosby, right? Or with Malkin, wherever he ends up playing. But still, is Bunting going to be enough? Are they going to have enough to get above the playoff line and stay there? Malkin needs to find the fountain of youth here. He's 37. This year he played all 82 games, 27 goals, 40 assists, 67 points. And his production's dropped. It's going to drop more, would be my guess, because again, at age 37, it is very rare for a player to have a big bounce back season. As great as Malkin's been, and I think he's been one of the best players over the last 20 years, eventually father time catches up with you. Rickard Rakell, 70 games, 15 goals, 22 assists, 37 points. He's 31 years of age. It was an underwhelming season for Rakell. There was some bad luck too. He still ends up at 15 goals, so maybe if he gets off to a good start, we'll see him get back into the 20-plus goal range. Blake Lizotte, an addition from LA, 62 games, 7 goals, 8 assists, 15 points. I don't think the 15 points tell you how well Lizotte plays. I think that he could up his production in Pittsburgh, maybe even double it, but we'll see. Kevin Hayes, since coming over from St. Louis, I should have put LA next to Lizotte too. Since I put St. Louis next to Hayes, I'll just throw the LA right there. But Hayes in St. Louis had a rough year. 32 years of age, 79 games, 13 goals, 16 assists, 29 points. Hayes has vowed that he's going to have a bounce back year, which any player in his position would. So we'll see what happens there. Hayes didn't have the effect in St. Louis that I think they'd hoped, and now he moves on. And the Penguins, of course, moving Riley Smith, which helps to make room for bringing other players in. It's kind of a mixed bag in Pittsburgh. Marcus Pettersson, 82 games, 4 goals, 26 assists, 30 points on that blue line. He's a very well-respected defenseman. Letang, 37 years of age, 82 games, 10 goals, 41 assists, 51 points. Letang can still play. I don't think he's necessarily as good as he was 10 years ago, but who is? Me included. And so Letang Will we see a drop in his production this season? Graves had a rough year. 70 games, 3 goals, 11 assists, 14 points. There's a chance Owen Pickering gets his way into this lineup. Graves was defended by Dubas after the season was done. Dubas talked about how he had played well elsewhere, and so he believed he could bounce back. So the topic of whether or not Graves can bounce back, well, he can. He's not 30 years of age either, so it's possible, but is it likely? We'll see. Erik Karlsson's 34 years of age, 82 games, 11 goals, 45 assists, 56 points. And Dubas was defensive on him, too. Not defensive's the wrong way of putting it, because it sounds like it got, heated. But he defended Karlsson. That's a better term. Defended Karlsson pretty well. And they've added Grzelcyk in the offseason. So Grzelcyk may end up jumping into a top 4 position. 63 games with Boston last year. 2 goals, 9 assists, 11 points. Yeah, I didn't put Grzelcyk as Boston either. I blame myself for putting the St. Louis next to Hayes. But it does show that the moves that have been made, adding Lizotte, adding Hayes, adding Grzelcyk, these are not young players. These are not up-and-comers. These are players that you add if you feel like you're trying to jump back into the playoffs. Nedeljkovic had a very good season, 18-7-7, his save percentage 902. Jari 19-25-5, save percentage of 903. You need the save percentage to come up, so they need a better season from the goaltending, better season from the defense. But is that going to happen is the question, right? Now, they still have some cap space, according to Puckpedia, $3,524,333. So there's a chance that over the next couple of weeks, before I really get into the season previews, maybe Pittsburgh makes a move. My guess would be another defenseman if I was Kyle Dubas. But we'll see. So 2017, this team won the Stanley Cup. And the happiness was all over because 2016 and 2017, they won both. So Penguins fans were pretty happy. 2018, they lost in the second round against Washington in 6 games. Bit of a shocker that one was. But the bigger shocker was 2019 because the expectation I had was Pittsburgh would bounce back, but they got swept by the Islanders. So 2019 was not that bounce back, and neither was 2020. They lose in the qualifying round, 3-1 against Montreal. 2021, they lost in the first round against the Islanders, 4-2. 2022, they lose in the first round against the Rangers, 4-3. And I know there was controversy in the Rangers winning that series for Penguin fans, but yeah, the Penguins have not won a round since 2018, and in 2023, they had 91 points, no playoffs. 2024, 88 points. Again, no playoffs. So the Penguins have been trending in the wrong direction. And the question that I'm asking myself, looking at this team and looking at the standings and all that, has this team made themselves significantly better in the offseason? Because we know other teams in the East are going to get better. I don't think so, but I have said for years on this channel, I never count Pittsburgh out. I can say that again here, even though they are staring down the barrel of missing the playoffs for a third straight year. I think if they do miss the playoffs for a third straight year, we'll see them go into a retool, not a rebuild, because I don't think Crosby is going to want to go through a rebuild since he's about to turn 37 years of age. So their GM, Kyle Dubas, he is still in charge. Remember when they named him as president? He's like, well, I'll interview candidates for general manager. And I get the feeling that process didn't last very long, and then it was, hey, I can do it. Mike Sullivan's still coach, and I know there are some Penguin fans that feel like his time has come and gone. I think if the Penguins get off to a slow start, we could see a change behind the bench because I think Dubas has some pressure to get this team back into the playoffs. But I don't know if there's a coach that can get more out of this team than what Sullivan's been able to get out of it, honestly. Their exits, Riley Smith, Jeff Carter, who of course retired, and P.O. Joseph, who they did not give a qualifying offer to, and he moves on. The additions, Beauvillier has been added. I figure he's going to end up on the 4th line. Maybe he gets on that 3rd line. Hayes on the defense. They've added Sebastian Aho as well. He's ideally a number 7 defenseman. Grzelcyk and the aforementioned Lizotte as well. So the additions, again, tell me this is a team that's expecting to jump back into the playoffs. We'll see if they can. And Yeager. Yeager may be one to keep an eye on because he signed his entry-level contract now. They clearly need some youth in their top 3 lines. Yeager could push his way in. Look for him to get an extended look during the preseason and in training camp and see which line he might slot into. In the event that he can play top 6 minutes, it might dramatically increase their chances depending on how well Jaeger plays. But again, there's a lot of ifs and maybes in there, right? Currently in Cup odds, and again, grain of salt with all this because the Stanley Cup isn't going to be decided until next June, but they're 21st. So right now, the gambling community doesn't see Pittsburgh as a playoff team, and so you guys can let me know your thoughts. But when I do the season previews, I'll of course be doing the polling of the channel. I get the feeling that the Penguins are probably going to poll as a team that ends up outside the playoffs. I'd be kind of surprised if they ended up back in the playoffs, which is interesting because I've talked about how the Capitals and the Penguins are tied together. It feels like the Capitals might be able to get back above that playoff line again this year, or at least be in the mix. It feels like Pittsburgh's falling off the pace a little bit. Now, in terms of unrestricted free agents, Crosby's due next summer. The rumor was out there a couple weeks ago that Crosby was agreeing to an extension and it was coming. It hasn't happened as of yet. Maybe once this video goes live, it happens. Malkin's an unrestricted free agent in 2026. Letang is due in 2028. Carlson's 2027. So their core four there, which is an old core four, we'll see what happens with them and whether or not they finish their contracts and do they stay in Pittsburgh. All eyes seem to be pointed right now at Crosby, but look for them to point towards Malkin next summer, depending on what kind of year Malkin has. If Malkin's point totals drop further, if he ends up in the 60-point range, Malkin may very well retire in 2026. There's no way to know. And we are getting to that point where these guys are closer to 40 than to 30, and at some point in time, players do retire. And then, of course, Pittsburgh will have to go into a rebuild once we reach the stage where these veteran players have retired, right? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below regarding the Pittsburgh Penguins. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. My expectation is they'll find another generational player. They're able to do it. They do it. And I know people don't like, they get lucky at the draft. Sometimes luck works. But thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.